To check out the entire show, hit the link at the bottom of the screen, available exclusively on odds.com. Okay, we move on. 4:40 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. NFC Wildcard, LA Rams, 10-6, 4-4 on the road at Seattle Seahawks, 12-4, 7-1 at home. Lumen Field, Seattle, Washington, 45 Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy, 4 miles per hour. They're getting a ton of rain in the Pacific Northwest right now, but it won't be raining on Saturday. We have the Seahawks open up at -4.5. They're now -4. It's funny. I swear I thought I saw 5s at one point. Did that not get to 5? No. Very interesting. We'll start with the Rams. Defense allowed the fewest points, total yards passing, touchdown passes, and first downs in the league this season. They're a very dangerous, very strong defense. On Sunday, the defense outscored the Cardinals by themselves. Now, part of it was that Winnipeg Blue Bomber Streveler was under center and not Kyler Murray. There is a quarterback controversy in LA. John Wolford, replacing an injured Jared Goff in Week 17, was 22 of 38 for 231 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. He also ran 6 times for 56 yards. He looked bad out the gate, but he started looking better and better. He's the only quarterback in NFL history to pass for at least 200 yards, rush for at least 50 in his NFL debut. Goff hasn't been ruled out for Saturday's wildcard matchup, but it looks like he's not going to be able to get clearance from the doctors at this point. Even if he clears, a lot of people are calling on Wolford to remain at the helm. If Goff is announced out and the betting public moves Seattle to 6 or 6.5, I'm not saying that he's worth that many points, but if Seattle takes a ton of heat here in the next few days before kickoff, I will back Wolford and the Rams. And I completely understand why there's a quarterback controversy. And if you could get rid of Goff somehow in the offseason and start next year paying your quarterback $850,000 a year and he's decent, well, we saw what Seattle and San Francisco did in 2013 with Kaepernick and Russell Wilson getting $850,000 and $750,000 respectively. They had $20 extra million to put a football team together. Now, that's a lot of ifs. So Goff completed 67% of his passes for 3,952 yards, 20 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and he had weapons. Cooper Kupp, 92 passes for 974 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's still on a COVID-restricted list, but he should be back soon. Robert Woods caught 90 passes for 936 yards, 6 touchdowns. Josh Reynolds caught 52 passes for 618 yards. Tight ends Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett were both very dangerous. Higbee caught 44 passes for 521 yards, 5 touchdowns. Everett caught 41 passes for 417 yards, 1 touchdown. Cam Akers ran 145 times for 625 yards and 2 touchdowns. Darrell Henderson ran 138 times for 624 yards, 5 touchdowns. Even Malcolm Brown came in with 101 rushes for 419 yards and 5 touchdowns. Last month, they suggested that Andrew Whitworth could be back for this game. They provided no updates at this time, so I don't know if he will be back. Linebacker Micah Kaiser, defensive tackle Michael Brockers are questionable. Bebsie, can the Rams pull the upset here? Let's talk about these Los Angeles Rams.
Look, I very much believe this team can pull off the upset. Again, the matchup here with Aaron Donald inside creating all kinds of havoc, they have proven to be able to shut down this Seattle offense. And that seems to, over the course of this season, have been easier and easier. But with a guy like Ramsey, who we've talked about this twice already this year, Ramsey is capable of covering DK one-on-one. On the other side of the ball, Darius Williams, or the other side of the field, Darius Williams has proved to be a very good corner as well. So he takes care of Lockett. I just think they match up well. And in spite of what this season record says, I like the Rams to win this game. I really do. I just think chip on their shoulder. I believe Cooper Kupp will play. If Whitworth is back, that is huge. And I don't think Goff is that much of a factor. I don't think they get fired up with Goff. And Wolford, I mean, I joked about it on Sunday about him being Kurt Warner 2.0, the guy who has the – he wasn't a grocery bagger, but the guy was a accountant or something. and our finance. He worked in finance or something, and now he's starting in a NFL playoff game probably. But I certainly do think the Rams can pull this off. And this Seattle team was very underwhelming in the second half of the season. Their defense got a lot better, but their offense kind of fell apart. Kudos to Ken Norton Jr. because I really thought halfway through the season that guy was going to get fired. He turned it around. Dunlop really helped this team solidify something up front. Obviously, Jamal Adams coming back as a pass rusher has been huge, but this team almost lost to the 49ers practice squad players in a game that Seattle wanted to win for a potential home field advantage spot, and San Francisco had nothing on the line other than pride and beating a rival, but C.J. Beathard almost beat them.
It's an important point. Seahawks finished up their season 12-4, 26-23 win over San Francisco that Bebsie was just talking about. Russell Wilson, 20-36, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that's what we got used to. We got used to his numbers like that. He was spectacular to start the season, and then he slowed down. On the season, he completed 68.8% of his passes, 4,212 yards, 40 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. He also ran for 513 yards and 2 touchdowns. He hasn't thrown for more than 263 yards in a game during the entire second half of the season. Tyler Lockett had 12 catches for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns on Sunday against the Niners. He caught 100 passes for 1,054 yards and 10 touchdowns. He became the first Seahawk to reach the century mark in a regular season. DK Metcalf caught 83 passes for 1,303 yards and 10 touchdowns. He broke the Steve Largent-held receiving record. Largent had to do it with Dave Craig. DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson, but great job, DK. Only 4 times in 16 games were the Seahawks better than 50% on third down conversions. Seattle was 4 for 12 on Sunday, and Bebsie just called that Niners team they were up against a practice squad. Against the Niners, over the final 3 games, they were 17 of 41, 41%. 40% on third downs their entire season. They had injuries to their running back group this year. Chris Carson played 12 games, ran for 681 and 5 touchdowns. Carlos Hyde played 10 games, ran for 356 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Seahawks defense was awful in the first half, as Bebsie alluded to, excellent in the second half. If it wasn't for that late touchdown, 23 seconds left on Sunday by the Niners that cost Bebsie and I the under, the Seahawks would have held each of their final 6 opponents to under 20 points. Defensive tackle, so these are some big points here. Defensive tackle Jaron Reed suffered an oblique injury Sunday. Reed's second on the team with 6.5 sacks. And he's hurting. So will he be able to play hurt? Will he be able to play through the game? Safety Jamal Adams, who broke the sack record for defensive back, hurt his shoulder Sunday. And at first, they were talking about how, he's going to be okay. And now there's some fear whether Jamal Adams will be available.
It looked bad.
Yeah.
And he came back in and took that chip block. And he looked pretty dejected on the sidelines after that. He didn't look like a guy who was going to be okay.
There's some real fear whether he'll be in the lineup now. Cornerback Jason Stanley, tight end Greg Olsen, guard Mike Iupati, running back DJ Dallas are all questionable. Offensive tackle Jamarco Jones underwent groin surgery Friday. He is done for the season. So, talk to me about the Seahawks, and then when you do that, if you could circle back and answer this question from Jay-Z, there's film on Wolford now. Can Carroll put up a defense to stop this guy? So start with the Seahawks and then answer the question from Jay-Z.
Okay. Well, look, obviously the Seahawks have been a very consistent team all year. They've been one of the most consistent teams in the NFL over the last decade. But where they've been inconsistent is their defense got stronger, their offense got weaker, and I don't know why. They didn't really lose anyone. I guess they had some injuries along the O-line. They lost Carson and Hyde, but they came back, and nothing really changed. And in watching Russell Wilson last week, Russell Wilson's never been a real speed demon, but he did look a step slower than normal. And I don't know if that was just perception or what, but I don't know if Russ is 100% healthy. He obviously hasn't showed up on the injury report. he never misses games, but he just looked a little slower most of that game. So I just think matchup-wise, in the playoffs, against a defense that really matches up perfectly against you, it is a really, really tough spot for Seattle. And I do think this will be a close game. I really think it'll be an under. I think it'll be a low-scoring game just because, look, both of these defenses have been playing well. Both of these offensives have not. And as far as JT's question about tape on Wolford, I don't know how much one game will give them. It gives them something. You're right. It's something to think about. But I personally like McVay to outcoach Pete Carroll in this one. So, yes, there is film on him. I don't know if it's a huge factor.
I want there to be steam on the Seahawks, but I will wait for that to happen. I'm going to be very patient here. And
yeah, Robert Allen, sorry, DK Metcalf was absolutely blanketed by Ramsey in both games this year. And actually, DK Metcalf was completely shut down by Akello Witherspoon of the 49ers, who has been a total bust, except for a few spots here and there, except the last 3 games he has balled out. And the difference is Akello Witherspoon is 6'3". He's not a thick guy like Ramsey, but even in college, DK Metcalf struggled against taller corners. Greedy Williams, when they met in college, when LSU played Ole Miss, he shut him down. So, yeah, as incredible as Metcalf has been, he has not played well against Jalen Ramsey.
I will not bet the Rams with Goff under center. So Goff has to be announced out. Hopefully the Seahawks get bet more, and I will take the Rams. If Goff is under center, I won't take the Rams. I don't want anything to do with them. Is how I'm seeing this game. Bebsie, what do you think about this total at 42.5?
I think it's an under. I really do. Neither of these teams, I think, will explode point-wise. Seattle, just because I've said several times now, the matchup isn't favorable, and their defense has played well. So I don't think with Goff or Wolford behind center, I don't think either team is going to put up a ton of points. And let's face it, it's a divisional matchup in the playoffs. These guys are going to be thumping each other. It's going to be a conservative game. Even at I think it's 42 and a half, somewhere around there. Even at that, I really think this is an underplay.
I agree with you. I also think that we might be better off focusing on just the first half. Bebsie, it bit us in the last game. I fear if the Seahawks are behind, they're capable of putting up late points. Would the first half make you more comfortable than the full game?
Yeah, that's a good look, Jimmy.
The first half right now,
21s.
Is it 21 straight, or can you get a hook?
I'm only seeing 21s.
Yeah. I don't want to have a total, and I don't want to have a bet.
You know what I mean, Jimmy?
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first half under now and wait to see if the full game moves.
I hear that. I do not, and this is something that Dennis Garcia and I talked about last year. The last thing you want to do is have a bet where there's 1 minute and 40 seconds left on the clock. Russell Wilson has the ball, and if he scores, you lose the bet.
You don't want that.
No. And so the under, you can be comfortable with the under if the Seahawks are ahead. If the Seahawks are down, I mean, maybe this is a perfect live betting situation. And the weather's going to be nice on Saturday.